Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name of course is 24Oscarr, and welcome back to the channel. I would like to pose a question to each and every one of you very special people. It is a question that has perplexed social scientists and gender activists alike. Yes indeed, the greatest minds of our time have dissected this question into segments, sections and segments, parts of sections of segments, and yes, even sectors of parts of sections of segments, but to no avail. There doesn't seem to be a definitive answer to this question, as feminist scholars, social justice warriors, and hipster game designers can't seem to come to a truly definitive answer. It is indeed the question of the ages, my friends. The zeitgeist will forever be affixed to this moment in time, until someone brave enough, someone intelligent enough, someone gorgeous enough can come along and peer into the vacuous abyss that this question has enveloped us in. And that's where I come in. Yes indeed, that is me, your humble 24Oscarr. And without further ado, I will be taking on this question that has wrought such chaos and havoc in the wake of its initial postulation. That question being, do video games need to be fun? My initial answer may be somewhat controversial to many of you out there, but I'm asking you to hear me out and allow me to explain my rationale here. Since this question in of itself is a little more deceptive rhetoric used as an answer to a faulty argument, that argument being, video games have to be fun. The reason that the question has been brought up over the past few years is due to the fact that many quote-unquote indie video game designers have been pushing video games that are supposedly mature in nature. The way that these so-called game designers exhibit their expertise in the area of game design is by foregoing the aspect of a video game that makes a video game in the first place. That aspect paradoxically being of course the game design. The rationale behind the absurdity is that in order to mature the medium, in order for this form of art to grow in a vulnerable and respected profession, it must be accessible to all. There is a lot of talk about how gaming is a hobby that is difficult for outsiders to grasp, and that by breaking down these barriers, we may allow this industry to thrive in ways that were previously unfathomable by exagerating the narrative that in order for video games to thrive, they must be mature. But in order for them to be mature, they must be accessible, is to undermine the idea that gameplay matters whatsoever. In other words, for the pseudo-game designers to bear the putrid moniker of game designer, they must first expunge the very notion that game design is at all important to gaming. This allows their lack of artistry, understanding, and talent to become inconsequential as they completely eliminate standards, which in turn grants them the impetus to create postmodernism interactive play-motivated digital novellas, for lack of a better description. Games need to be fun, they'll ask. You are but a relic of the past, full of antiquated ideas of what a game can and should be. You're holding back progress, they'll say. You're entitled, they'll say. You're problematic, they'll say. Gamers are dead, they will say. As is common in deceptive arguments such as this, there is a grain of truth to be found amongst the incongruity. Do games need to be fun? No. No, they do not. Do good games need to be fun? Yes. Yes, they do. And I would even argue the idea that if a video game is lacking in mechanics, that it is by its very nature a bad video game. Does this mean that postmodernist interactive player-motivated digital novellas are bad? Maybe, maybe not. It is reliant on the content, however. If you want to call these things video games, then yes, they fail. They fail to massively use the unique tools that this medium gives designers access to. It's akin to being a painter, who uses a canvas and a paintbrush, but detests the idea of using paint. I believe a better question would be, if you believe that you can construct a thing whose very nature is contingent upon an element that you deem irrelevant, can you truly create that thing? And the answer of course would be no, because if the thing in question is quite literally defined by the elements that you want to expunge, then you are by definition failing to create the thing in question. Another question may arise in your mind if you are an individual who is striving to create something by disregarding its elements entirely. That question being, why do I want to create this thing in the first place? On a case-by-case basis, I'm sure that the answer can be construed in many different ways, depending on who you ask. However, I think the true answer is beautiful in its simplicity, yet disparaging in its consequences. Riddle me this. What is something that God never sees, something that a king seldom acknowledges, and something that we see every day? Ego. What is the largest and most profitable entertainment medium in the world right now? Video games. What happens to a particular thing when it becomes popular? Parasites latch onto it in order to gain notoriety, popularity, and acceptance. However, video games by their very nature are complex. Vast knowledge are required to understand what these things are, how they operate, what makes them function, and why people enjoy them so much. Sure, you can just give about everyone a copy of Tetris, and after a few minutes they'll understand how to play the game, yet there is an obvious barrier to entry when it comes to the more popular games of the era, due to the mental dexterity required to even become competent in these titles. Furthermore, there are subgenres of subgenres of subgenres that are created specifically for niche markets that require a level of understanding that most people couldn't even begin to comprehend. Therein lies the quandary many of us who grew up with this hobby understand it inherently, because it is a part of us. We understand the minutiae and nuances, and even when it comes to the genres we don't particularly favor, we have at the very least a basic understanding of why people enjoy them, and why we don't. We have helped in creating an industry that makes billions a year, and the very people who castigated us for being into this hobby are now being looked to get in on the action. However, since these people are by their very nature uninterested in the types of experiences that video games produce, they are now attempting to redefine the hobby to better suit their interest under the guise of progress. This worked for the specific people quite well when it came to other forms of entertainment that they deemed toxic in one way, shape or form. However, they are deeply frustrated by gaming as a medium. As an industry, and as a culture due to the fact that it's esoteric by its very nature, they create their modernist, interactive, player-motivated digital novellas thinking that gamers will line up in droves to experience what their brand of progress consists of. Then they become frustrated when no one pays attention to any mind and lash out at the community for not taking their supposed art, their supposed progress seriously. A game's mechanics are integral in its form, its interactivity is what makes it unique, and its fun factor is what makes it good. So, do video games need to be fun to play? Of course not. Not at all. Do great video games need to be fun to play? You're fucking right they do. With that being said, dear listeners, I hope that you enjoyed delving into the periphery with me. And if you have any thoughts, please share them in the comment section below. I'm always interested in hearing your thoughts on the matter. And once again, I am 24Oscarr. Happy New Year, and thank you so much for watching. Be sure to have a fine day.